here you go. So currently, what we have come, not the most of the thing, we have come up with four separate discussions. One is why we need TOGA++, foremost thing. Then what do we need to add on the on-chain level? Is it a part of protocol thing, or is it another separate contract like TOGA itself, but on-chain? And the third topic is the social coordination mechanism for TOGA, things like a DAO or things like, yeah, I guess type of DAO, I guess. And then the last part is how to distribute the agent, the software, right? Is it just the way we are doing it now, one single client, which is not ideal, or we plug into some other existing bot network so that we can leverage on an ecosystem such as MEV stuff. If there's angle that we can plug it in ourselves as some sort of MEV so that people can run their bots, but we're just being one of the opportunity, I guess, or other bot network. So that's kind of distribution part. So that's the thinking at the moment. It's splitting into four different separation of concern. Any comments before I start our discussion regarding the why we need TOGA++? Is there any obvious things in here? There's no discussion about naming, so it's called TOGA++. I guess we'll move on from that. Okay, so why we need TOGA++? Let's see if Nuno what we discussed.
Do you want me to drive it, or?
So with the growth of Superfluid Protocol, expansion of off-chain infrastructure that can provide valuable service, present challenges to actual TOGA system. I'm not sure if I understand.
Yeah. Okay, I can drive it through you. Okay. The objective of having a TOGA++, Superfluid is growing in terms of users, but also the expectation that the service that we provided to our community. Today, we TOGA plus Sentinels, they're very tight together, and just provide one of the services that is basically a core feature, that is liquidations. And that's not enough from the user expectations they have to our company. These projects is around the idea. Yeah, can you mute it?
Yeah. No moments.
So the idea of TOGA++ is also to be a tech product that's going to evolve, and this is going to be the second iteration around Sentinels and TOGA. The objective is basically having more Sentinels running, so more instances, code, people participate in the network, not just in the liquidations we're going to see later, but to support what service we consider valuable to us. Create also the ground, the building blocks, so community members can code against the network itself. So when I say that, is they can signal and coordinate on-chain plus off-chain some positions. People normally gather around DAOs to do that. Also, one thing is really important, basically supporting more service. Liquidations is not enough to be profitable by itself. And inclusion of service like top-up and scheduling of streams, we are going to end up with a low revenue to the Sentinels by itself, because other services are taking care of it before it enters the phase of liquidations. We have the risk of the Sentinels basically being a ghost town. They're going to be called once a month, because between auto top-up and auto close, there's not going to be no liquidations anymore. That are the base objectives. An additional one, there's something more from a security perspective, is basically having a stake. Each peak, the stake, the tendency should be to grow because our security budget, and also have different implementations or plug to different systems. So people don't depend on the Sentinel code base to run a Sentinel, but if they are running some type of bot networks, NEV, auctions, something like that, they can easily plug to our system. That's what we are going to talk about it. Maybe and then I reference here some docs if people want to check more details what we mean by peak, TOGA, action, sentinels. So there is some, so people can contribute to this effort. Maybe can you click on probably the social coordination mechanism? Yeah. The relevant discussions, 022.
Wait, I thought the on-chain rule should be first, or is it?
Could be, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I understood. So maybe the on-chain coordination first, and then shows which one is required. Okay.
Yeah, so
fine.
We can
we clarify one thing before we move on? Is mention the challenge, the current challenge. Let's just phrase it clearly. TOGA, if it's correct. And I think last time we mentioned in the Notion, we also mentioned something about clarifying that we're not necessarily trying to maximize the profit for the agent, right?
Yes, this effort is not a maximization of profits. It's just to maintain a minimal viable network working.
How do they say it? One moment. The notes got changed in Notion. I couldn't find it. Sorry. All right. So TOGA pick. The challenge is that currently TOGA pick takes most of the profit. Is that true? So there's no incentive for
being the other pirates or players. There is no incentive if you're not big in any token.
Okay. Is that in itself a something to be said about the 3P system in general? We kind of create a monopoly that are actually effective monopoly, as opposed to making it more open. I mean, we did it that way is because we're afraid that some of the stream are too small to have incentive to close it, right? So I can't prove one way or the other, right? If we turn it 3P off, would there still be liquidations that well, no one has incentive? I mean, we always have incentive, so we can't really prove it. I mean, we're always closed with or without pick, right? So.
And there's also the front running problem.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, the peak system or the 3Ps are basically a structured queue. So we avoid gas wars and front running.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we force, or our tendency is to be a big stake from the big part. Because in this system, you should call secret budgets, because that's good. I don't think the 3Ps are the problem.
Mm. I just want to mention it. Is that because of 3PO in general, it's a problem. But also because of that, and that's what we want to solve is to have more agents in the system, right? With this system, it doesn't incentivize any diversified group of agents. And we have two solutions. Either we try to find a way to make it more evenly rotate, or either we design new incentives. And TOGA++ kind of take on the assumption that we'll add more incentives as opposed to trying to fix the current problem. Maybe the current pie is too small anyway in the first place to actually have profitability to be shared. So even if we do evenly rotating or whatever rotation we're talking about, and we're talking about probably a small pie, and the more people actually participate, the harder it probably even.
I would also argue that you have to actually prove that this doesn't work, because we haven't had a single liquidation in ages. So if you,
I think we don't say that it doesn't work. It's more like it works for its purpose, but we kind of have less people to participate. It works for its purpose, but we kind of have less people to participate. That's the rather problem. It works for sure.
yeah, but that might very well just be a function of the size of the pie, right? So.
Right.
Yeah, and one of the proposals of coordinations is to share profits to a more broad base of the community.
And that's where the social coordination mechanism is about soon, right? So currently we don't dictate any social mechanism. TOGA is a simple auction-based system, right? So there's no built-in enforced basic social coordination rule at all. And that's probably something we could change, but they become opinionated, and maybe that's where the discussion is about.
Yeah, we are going to discuss that. My vision is more about creating just the building blocks, not force any type of organization. Our current system is really hard to code against.
Yeah. Okay, I can only write one challenge. I think that's the main challenge we want to solve. I don't think we need more challenge to be listed there. So what's changed since TOGA minus ACL is released? So now that we can actually legitimately let the external system to do more work for the user if the user opt in, right? So ACL is released. What's changed? I think that's the main thing. Is there anything I'm missing where we can improve the?
From the tech part, that's the main change. It's the main one.
Okay, so that's the context. So what I will do is I will summarize here and put to the main ticket at some point. Currently, we just exchange some points here in the thread. I still feel something is missing, right? We're already talking about social coordination, but coordinate for what? And that part regarding adding new type of incentive, I don't know which thread we should talk about now. I thought it's more part of the on-chain rules rather.
The coordination part is what we're going to need to change in the code to make easier to someone to deploy the coordination mechanism. The coordination mechanism is not going to affect the incentives. That's more about the protocol. But it's a way that people could code against to distribute.
Okay. What wasn't explicitly mentioned yet is that the big position seems to be too monopolistic, and it looks like we want to facilitate formation of DAOs for taking the big role. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't want to use the term, but yeah.
Okay, so VJ's
sorry, no.
Yeah, sorry, cross talking now. I just want to address VJ's points here. I think that's a good point that what's changed since TOGA. In fact, what's gonna come in soon more is that as automations getting better in Superfluid ecosystem, that expectation of the number of liquidations should trend towards 0. Right, so that's what we actually prefer, most likely. We're not trying to make money. We're trying to make it secure. We're not trying to make money using the liquidations, right? So that's still the goal. Historically, we got quite a bit of sum of money from the liquidation, but that's just because our ecosystem has been not mature yet, right? Vijay, is that what you meant? Is a fair summary of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think basically like in combination of better design for UIs and more educated end users, then as well as obviously ACL features being used, then the overall revenue, I guess, for the PIC should be trending to 0.
All right, so both of the automation and the UI UX built on top of protocol, the expectations go towards 0, right? And this further put pressure on the TOGA participation incentives. Right. The ACI is released. It enables, let me just write the implications. It enables more advanced automation and for the users. Sunny, you want to say something?
Oh, sorry, that was an accident.
No. Okay. Nuno, I think you should have a brief look of on-chain rules. I think that should be quick so that we know what the toolkit available before we go into the social coordination. I think.
Yeah. The order is not important. It's just to present the. Okay, so basically the requirements we need we already have on chain. It's basically the ACL and the RC20 proof, supporting both service auto top up and closing open streams, scheduling. So the base idea now this is just the first design and we can discuss around this is the first idea of using the gas tank strategy. So we can balance the cost, what's happening. It's going to have a contract. We call it engine rule because the user is going to set a configuration on chain. The rules are going to be set on chain. And also the same contract is going to refund the caller, in our case, the Sentinel, to the cost of operations between a min max value. So the cost is being controlled. And it's going to be, this contract is going to affect the protocol itself. So Sentinels are running, someone needs a top up, they send a transaction, get the cost covered. There is an operation, there is a user state change in the protocol. It's the basic idea. So every encoded rule user protocol is going to be gathered around this small smart contract. It's not big. The rules are pretty simple, basically balances and amounts. That's it. So we need this component on chain in each network. Not touching TOGA yet. One of the discussions is how can we, for example, extend 3Ps to these operations if we need it, if we don't need it. How can we make this work in the decentralized network like Sentinels? Because just saying that people are going to run and not make money is not a good assumption. People run Sentinels to make money.
I just need to speak louder than Dima, right? So one summary that I think missing here is that overall, I think the thinking is implicitly, let's make it clear, is that on-chain rules are less opinionated, let's say, building blocks for the social coordination mechanism, the TOGA++, right? So we want a on-chain. Geez, my spelling today. Build this rule engine simple, right? We don't want to overly complicate things, but they are non-opinionated so that the TOGA can be built on top of it. And we can then have a separation of concern in a way. Yeah.
Just one small detail. This contract is going to be also a mechanism of signaling opt-in or opt-out of a service. Yeah. Between the RC20 approve or ACL permit, we can also check the gas balance, the gas tank, to see if the user really wants the service or not.
Yeah. So that's the technical part, and like software requirement is about the last topic is off-chain system distribution, right? So I don't think we should forget about distribution part, and the distribution also has multi-factor. One is how to reach more people to run the software. And that's one part, to have more people. The other part is how to make it more redundancies in the network. So that's a security aspect, having more redundancy, diversity in client implementation. And the other one is I'm losing train of thought. I think that's two I can think of. Yeah. Build our own ecosystem is difficult. It depends on the volume. That's why I'm kind of thinking that maybe plugging into a existing bot ecosystem that we're just one piece of it so that people run it, not just because of us, maybe a good distribution mechanism also. So that's why I also wanted to have some separate topic here about that.
Yeah, just to add up just to the distribution, this could be the critical point, because if people are already running process to do stuff on chain, there is no reason why they don't want to do this also. Even if the profit is just a little bit, just 1 cent, they are already running it. So I think the distribution is going to be critical to expand the number of sentinels running.
Okay. Anyone has done something smart to say? Please participate. We don't have outsiders at the moment.
One comment. It seems to me that the goal is maybe a bit too narrowly on Sentinel operators being profitable / making money. I don't think that should be a goal per se. The goals are safe protocol, and one of the requirements for that is big enough bond, and another is enough, let's say, diverse enough set of sentinels. Diverse can mean different people, can mean different client implementations, etc.
Yeah.
So if making them money helps that, okay, that's likely one way to facilitate that, but I wouldn't focus too narrowly on that.
That is not listed in objective, right? It's not about making more money. I guess making money, having more incentive is a mean to the end of the ends are the objective here, which is not about having more profit per se.
So as I would underline what Vijay said, right? That one of the objectives should be to reduce user failure modes. So like users don't want to get liquidated, right? And you should strive to design the system so that it can function without requiring users to be unhappy.
Reduce unforced liquidations. How do you say, not unforced? I'm trying for unforced errors, but what's the best term here?
I think even reduce liquidations, or let's say the proportionally.
Right. Yeah, is that fair to say, like reduce undesired liquidation with a quote? No. no strong definition what does it mean. I guess we can feel what does it mean.
I want just to comment before we went to the definition. I'm going to do a comment on DD. Yeah, the profits are not, we are not building a system to make money, but that's a side effect that is critical to this to work. Blockchains work because of the economic incentive to miners to get blocks, people to run sentinels. It's not because they like us, to be honest. And one thing, our security budget is basically the bond that the peak needs to submit to the system. And here is the problem. How much, we don't know how much money should be locked inside. And if we don't create a way of rewarding people that are putting stake money inside our system, it's just profitable, just go to Aave and receive 2%.
Sure.
So the discussion, yeah, it's not about the money itself, but it's the most strong incentive we have to people to run sentinels, the same way as like miners is the most incentive way to compute code, to compute blocks. It's a strong instrument we have.
I think we can agree that there needs to be an incentive.
Yeah, small, we can discuss if it's small one, big one. That's most, yeah, we could collect the data to check what we need, but that incentive needs to be there, but it's not an objective. We are not building a system just to make money. But we are going to need to talk about it. We need to encode that, because that's in the end is going to be the reason of people running it or not running it, how to be the peak. So there is no reason, if I'm not going to make money, to lock 20K to be a peak. I take that money, I'm going to do something else.
Okay, let's follow the train of thoughts here. So the means to achieve this objective going to be considered are more incentive in the system, right? So that's why so-called add civilian service is one thinking. All right, and also tap into general bot ecosystem, exposing the network to more, hence to expose the incentives to more clients, right? That's two means so far we identified.
Yeah, and the umbrella objective is just to have more stake in the system. People should lock more money, because the more money is there, the more secure the system is overall. So a problem with not diversity in clients can be solved if someone is a peak with a lot of money.
So it's part of objective, but this objective is out of blue, if you think about it, right? So why do we want more? Can we clarify?
Okay, we can clarify, but basically it's the one that's maintained the sum of the blue chip tokens solvent. That's critical.
And this is
kind of security budget, right?
Yeah, I call that a security budget, usually, because if you have $100, you have $100 of streams going insolvent.
This, by the way, is also protection against failures of the underlying layers. So if, for example, there's a liveliness failure, there's no way how a Sentinel implementation could work around that.
Yes, stuff like what happened in Solana, that they needed literally to stop operations. That's going to budget, and it's a security budget to a lot of cases. That's why it's so important. It's not just, oh, I miss a transaction. The more money locked, my intuition say that people are going to take care of the money and run more sentinels and want more clients, because they want to protect the money that is locked. But again, it's intuition. We still don't have the data, the picture.
All right, I'm trying to categorize in front. So network diversity, more network running, more type of agents. All right, so provide more valuable service. Okay, isn't that the same? Redundant. Add more service supported by Sentinel network. Provide more valuable service. Redundant.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, just to, yeah.
Mhm. Objective is also protocol friendliness. In a way, I categorize in that reduce undesired gradations, right? We can single it out as protocol friendliness. Remember that Llama Pay's entire thesis about superfluid is that we have liquidations, right? Oh, we should address
Yeah,
it.
we are an open stream system.
Yeah. Create necessary ground to Sentinel community to better coordinate if they wish to. So that's also kind of protocol diversity, I guess. Decentralization, protocol diversity, network diversity, more participants. Decentralization and more participations. All right. Okay, now I see logic now. I'm seeing logic now. The means we chose still is more incentives, tap into more ecosystem. Okay, should be good. I think the on-chain rules can, well, it's still a bit vague what our rule engine is, right? But I think it's too early to design. Maybe jump to that.
Yeah, I can give just one example so we can understand what the engine rule is.
Yeah.
The auto top up really needs to control how much tokens you are going to upgrade from token to super token. That's a rule, for example. Stroller used the stream running as a base metric. Oh, I'm going to multiply this, multiply by 7 days. That's the rule. So it's not up to the Sentinel or anyone on the network decide how much token is going to be. So it's just a function. So the rule is just to define boundaries on the operations you can perform, at least for both cases that we are dealing with. Starting streams, the boundary should be the dates, and the auto top up should be the amount that you are doing that.
Right.
The engine rule is going to be important on that, so we can integrate gelato, for example. So nobody needs to know the rules; they need just to execute a function against the rule engine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have those notes, just dump.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm going to continue to work on this. This is just the first approach of gathering information and ideas.
Yeah, also feedbacks. If no one talks, it's not going to help.
Yeah, I'm collecting ideas and nobody's talking.
All right,
Maybe
so
the coordination is going to be more.
Yeah, this definitely is a bit more open-ended also. That's some way of design. Let's see what we come up with.
Okay. Basically, the coordination part, what I want to do around this is basically creating a friendly TOGA system on chain so people can easily create code against it. Could be a DAO. The DAO, I'm going to talk about DAO, but not in the street form of the DAO wording, but coding something that can coordinate people. Yeah, definition. We have a problem with our system today. First of all, if we go to our objectives of maintaining our security budget, to take profits of our system, you need to stream out without making the difference between what is my stake, what are my profits. So if people want to, and streaming out the stake should be signaling, I'm leaving this position and not, oh, I'm taking profits out. So the TOGA has that problem of mixing, accounting everything together. So if I want to take half of my profits, I need to stream, and it's a mix between staking and profits. Just because at the time it was easier to code, I think that's, and the account system is just one, and also streaming it out. People try to build code, and Joshua is here, and maybe can give us an input on that. Code around the TOGA, and always the problem is how can I bring more people in and maintaining an account or profits when I need to pay it back. And using streams make everything way harder. So what we are discussing in here is basically doing a split of accounting. You have your stake, you're on your profits. Different accounts, different accounting systems inside the same contract. The rules pretty simple. You can withdraw the profits wherever you want. Just call a function, distribute it through an IDA, do something like that. It's up to you. You that are coding the coordination mechanism. It's up to you. And you have the stake, and the stake could follow the same rules of V2. So you can still stream it out during 7 days. I would like to be more simple. Just okay, you point in the contract you're going to leave, and after 7 days you can withdraw 100%, and not using streams, because streams itself is not adding value in this case, and it's just complicating the life of people that want to code against it. So that's the first design. I already discussed with some people inside Superfluid. Also, so a small detail is basically a delegation system. So we have the peak account itself, but we can have managers. So we can have multiple contracts that can act on that position, and it's not the same private key. So people can have diagnosis safe as a peak and have other smart contracts to manage everything up. In the case of a DAO, you don't need to make a snapshot voting to just increase the stake.
Okay. Well, before diving into the specifics of this design, I think unfortunately we didn't have others to join. But I think what we should do, at least to borrow to exchange some ideas with other system is in building or something's already in operation. So anyone has some suggestion what to look into, like trying to address similar problem. The problem, if we make it a simple statement, would be some sort of yield generating coordination profit share.
Reward distribution.
Yeah, so reward distributions, get more people participating, and so the underlying there is a protocol network that is generating some fees based on incentives, right? We're trying to eliminate liquidation-based incentives. That's more of a security thing, but we're trying to create a set of more value-add incentives, which is citizen services. And on top of that, we're building a social coordination mechanism so more people can participate and can have, a share of these fees, but with the exchange of kind of locking capital, right? So saving in exchange of a yield, right? Well, and 10,000 feet above you. So my question is, can anyone propose any system that they like and they participate or they know of that we should look into more before we build yet another ad hoc system in Superfluid, which we like to do anyway.
And if we are thinking this is complex, I didn't include it yet, but Fran make a proposal on this coordination on the TOGA changes. It's also very cool, way more complex. I'm going to introduce it next week as a design alternative to this one.
All right. Okay, if we don't have any on-chain example that anyone can readily present, what about the off-chain examples, like a real-life foundation governance type of thing? Recently, I heard an interesting observation by some people that there are now more and more foundations created in the world to support lots of open source project or cause or something like that. But let's just talk about a software project at least. There are so many foundations, right? You have Rust Foundation, you have a Haskell Foundation, you have C++ is still a committee. There's no foundation yet. This kind of a Linux is foundation, right? So all of these are like off-chain example that don't even have a token incentive yet. It's a really traditional structure that has directors appoint the caretakers, right? The front guy or the tech guy, the coordination guy, blah 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 blah. Right. It might sound a bit far-fetched comparison. I'm just trying to throw some dimensions so that we can think a bit beyond what we are talking about here. If they help, because no one talks, so I have to throw something.
Yeah, if I may comment.
Yeah.
So currently, if we assume the PIC to be one entity, there's a kind of a bound for how much capital one entity can and wants to put up as a bond. So that's kind of limiting. So
that's where the staking. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's where the staking comes in. That's my understanding. However, on the other hand, the moment you go the staking route, you again open up the question of, okay, how is this actually correlated to the actual task? Because the bond itself is just one component here. The other component is actually watching what happens on chain and doing the liquidation transactions. And I wonder if we just, I mean, you could already attach a staking mechanism. Okay, we could facilitate that, but even so, is it really helpful if that's easier? But the question of how does a staking system incentivize anybody to actually run a Sentinel? So that's somehow again an unsolved problem. Then it seems to me.
Running Sentinels is not just an act of running Sentinels, it's to protect the network so you don't go insolvent. If you have a big budget in staking, the risk of going is always way less. So if you can gather...
I'm not sure, because if you have 100 stakers and everybody has 1% of the stake, then maybe nobody has enough of a stake to have enough incentive to run a Sentinel, and you may end up in a situation where nobody runs it.
Yeah, but we are not discarding the 3Ps. So that
is in the 3Ps context. So let's say there's a DAO. There is a DAO,
to be the PIC.
And the DAO is the PIC, and the DAO is again composed of 100 entities, and every entity by itself. So you would actually need a DAO, which has something like a delegation system where somebody then internally is responsible for actually running the Sentinel. And then there's the question, okay, how do they make sure that they do this? How is that guy incentivized and penalized, etc.? So it feels like we're just offloading the problem.
We are not going to create the coordination mechanism itself. We are just giving the building blocks to facilitate that. That's why it's an opt-in system. So if people don't want to code against, the system is not going to change. So this can respond if you want to be the monopoly style of PIC, you can still do it. You just don't want your PIC to be a DAO. We are not forcing.
Sure, it's just not obvious to me that that would be a better system than what we have now.
Okay, so I think there are two dimensions, right? We add more stake because a stake is, if we come back to the original objective, stake is purely for the protocol robustness, the security budget. We want more because of that. But that kind of doesn't really directly add to the adding more clients, right? So that there's a disconnection there. So they're kind of two different things. So how can we connecting them together is where the kind of discussion is, if I understand it correctly.
Oh, wait a second. I'm just reminded of several staking structures where somebody who runs a node can set something like a fee for others delegating stake to them, and the sum of the own stake and third-party stake determines how much stake you have. So that may also be a possibility that we stick to the current model where it's kind of a monopoly, but where others can stake on a candidate and get some share based on that.
Yeah, so people who put in money, there's a risks and reward calculation there, right? So you definitely risk your money that because it's a security budget, right? So your money can be taken away, but at the same time you can share some profit that the pick is doing the making sure that the one that's staking with the pick don't lose money, hopefully, in the security budget. The side regarding the network diversity, then we come to a domain that's similar to other systems such as live peer and Golem and things like that, because they have an agent network that if they don't perform well, in principle, I don't know if it actually works like that. Even Graph has this kind of system coming, right? They have to make sure that the query nodes need to do the job. If they don't perform the job, and they will get slashed on their token, right? So that's come to the second dimension, which is getting more agent running, but also have more stake in participating. Maybe we can separate two budgets out as a clean separation instead of mixing them in one pool. Maybe that's one thing we can do. So one is purely for the security budget. One is for the participation of the network as an agent, and they have different calculation regarding sharing of the fees, right? If we do a clean separation, the challenges come up with a good split between two different jobs, but at least they're clean separation. Because logically, I don't know how to connect two different jobs together. One is potentially someone just having money stake. One is someone wants to run some agent without money, or with a little bit money at least, slash. So does it make sense?
Not sure. So we kind of have this two-tiered system with pick and plebs. The thing is that I think currently the plebs tend to get starved. So if there is no bug in the Sentinel, then the plebs will have nothing to do. So I don't know if this was picked up, but one idea was to have built-in randomized cases which are where you leave some of the jobs to the plebs in order to leave them some incentive and to even make visible if there are any.
It can still be an option that the pick has a monopoly, but only for 80% this kind of split, right? So whoever do the job still can get 20%. There's another way
like that.
Yeah, so that share a little bit of the pie, same as staking, but similar to staking.
I don't know if that really fixes it, because I mean we're talking about 80-20 of a couple of cents most of the time, right? And maybe this is kind of I'm sure this is a naive approach, but the way I'm seeing this right now, right? Like it doesn't take long to find a message in the Discord or find something on Twitter where somebody's, you know, bashing us or threatening us or cussing us out because they've gotten wrecked for a lot of money, right? But that's the optimal superfluid protocol for a Sentinel that actually wants to make money. Like people have to lose money for Sentinels to make money. I think, like ideally, you know, as soon as possible, somebody builds some sort of insurance system, whether it's auto top up, whether it's an auto closure, whatever it is. I mean, these things are in progress. They kind of taking forever, but that's the optimal outcome here. So if that's going to happen, and we have anybody that's even semi-professional at running one of these things, we can expect that, as it said there, it's going to trend towards zero, but not just trend towards zero, it's just going to drop off, right? Because as many people, you know, are going to use this as possible. And it's just, like we're going to end up in a situation where why even have the 3P system? Why would anybody stake USDC if they're going to make returns of, you know, fractions of a percent every year when inflation's sitting at 10%, right? Like it just doesn't make sense economically for anybody to do this. So we're kind of expecting already for like foundations and organizations to kind of run this benevolently. So we have like this benevolent security system as it is. So I mean, if this is the case, then what's the wrong with taking out the system altogether and leaving it so that it's just, if somebody does go insolvent, in the case that they do this, then it's a free for all. And you can have these benevolent actors that go and try and do this. And you can even have these searchers that come in and try to find this, because I mean, searchers are just looking for quick profits, right? I mean, there's one document that's on that describes the Sentinels in liquidation, right? But you can't just read that and start running a Sentinel. Like you need to understand more pieces of the protocol to actually be profitable. No searcher is going to read through all of our documentation for this, right? So like we're kind of limited to just those benevolent actors anyway. So why not open up the floor?
Right. I think dropping the 3P mechanism altogether for a pirate system, the only concern was part of the possibility, but the only concern was this garbage collector problem. Right, so there are certain houses that has so little garbage that no one wants to go collect it. I mean, the liquidation streams. That was the whole reason why we had some sort of monopoly in the first place. So by removing it, should we care about those small streams? That's still the pending question.
Right? Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I agree with Joshua that ideally we would frame this as an MEV problem and make it simple enough so that a Flashbot can just go in and do the job. And yeah, probably we should really think about the possibility to have a combination of minimum deposit, which makes the problem small enough, and what remains there, for example, in cheap chains, we just take care ourselves, at least for some tokens. Maybe it's not worth the remaining complexity.
Yeah, but we are
well, also the idea
it.
is that the idea also is that in either scenario, we do have to rely on benevolent Sentinel runners that just kind of run this without a profit, right? So like if I'm running, you know, if I'm picked for something, like right now, I don't expect to make a profit, right? Unless you're on Matic or USDC, one of the two that, you know, the airdrop farmers like to ape into, like you can't really expect to make money. And in this case, technically you would be losing money because most of these are not profitable anyway. And I mean, I don't know if we've really like dug into like the long-term profitability of each token, but I would imagine that some of them are probably at negative profitability. So like, if we're relying on these you know, benevolent Sentinels, then we would assume that these guys would also close those dust streams for us as well, right? It's kind of like subsidizing it. But even then, right, like if we're talking about, you know, fractions of a cent, it's not worth liquidating. Is it really worth closing immediately, right? Because if we're insolvent by $1, we're not gonna have a bank run. And even if we did, like surely somebody has lost $1 somewhere in the system that it's not going to matter. We'll still be able to cover everything, right? Like it becomes an issue when there's a lot of money, whenever there's a massive stream that goes rogue. And if there is a massive stream, then people are incentivized to close it. So it's, I don't know. I think like it's really complicated to get into running Sentinels as it is. And if we're going to rely on these people anyway, it just would be easier to let them just take the profits as opposed to having to wait for a pick position.
All right. Well, so basically open that topic from the beginning that we didn't think about this topic at all, because that would be a new new thread about rethinking the security service provided by Sentinel network in general. So TOGA++ as current scope, we don't necessarily want to change it that much as it is. So what could be what you are suggesting here is basically reverting to a kind of some sort of anarcho mode, right? As a protocol support, right? We remove the 3P, remove the reward address, everything is anarcho. The only thing is the tiny string problem. That's the known problem.
Can we
There is
can
no problem.
consider
No.
that it works, guys? Like,
Yeah.
what are we talking about?
What I'm just trying to capture all the conversation here, right? So it's something that was not in the scope about the security service. As it is, it's fine, and we just want to get more. Yeah.
Just responding to Josh, I think for tokens that are not widely used, it's always going to be benefactor led, right? That is not disputed, but it's also less relevant, right? What we really need to protect are the stable coins ultimately. And I think the system is likely to always protect stablecoins. I don't think it's ever going to be, pure no liquidations. I just can't imagine that being the case, because otherwise we're assuming that gelato never breaks, which I don't know, doesn't seem likely. Or assuming that whatever other infrastructure we run never breaks, which is also not likely, right? So I don't understand why you assume that those solutions will be more efficient than what we have already. I don't think is the case. One way, very simple, clear-cut way we've discussed in the past that would allow us to effectively monetize the TOGA a bit more was liquidation callbacks, which would effectively mean that the liquidator, the PIC, gets money to perform an auto top-up. And I think that would probably be the simplest thing to do in this case. But yeah.
I mean, like the point that I'm kind of getting at here is that like we're debating a technical security issue, right? But users don't care about technical security issues. Like the one of the big problems here right now is that people are getting wrecked. They're coming to our Discord. They're going to Twitter. They're going to go on to make things like LlamaPay. And like it's hurting us, right? Like VJ's made this point already, and I pretty strongly agree. Like there's a lot of people that are getting hurt with this, that they're not going to read the warning labels, they're not going to pay attention, and they're going to get wrecked. And if we continue with this, like we're going to have the most secure streaming protocol out there that nobody wants to use because they don't want to get wrecked, right? Like if somebody forked Superfluid tomorrow and created, instead of all of this, just a simple, here's a fee, it ensures that your stream never gets closed. Like I mean, I have a pretty good feeling as to like where people are going to flock, right? Like average users. I don't mean like crypto natives that really know what they're doing. Like this is a big problem, right? Like we're not just shooting for the crypto natives. We're shooting for as many people as possible, and we need to accommodate that. And like whatever system we go with here, I don't think like optimizing for liquidations is going to be the best way to go about it, right? Like it works for now. Like you said, like it does work right now. But when somebody comes along and makes an insurance system where these liquidations start drying up, it might not be like, even if it doesn't completely dry it up, like already it's it's profitable now, but like once that happens, how profitable is that going to be? And then like where are Sentinels going to get their profits from? Like why not just pull out at that point?
That's
Well,
why
I'm not so sure you're following the conversation. We're trying to talk about TOGA++ with the goal to increase the friendliness, right? It's one of the objectives to have less undesired liquidation. This is one of the goals. And
I think there's a way how you could even see a synergy here, because I also agree that we should get more focus, but Vijay is saying that actually we don't want liquidations, and I think this framing of military and civilian services makes a lot of sense. Where the military is kind of the fallback, you need it, but you don't really want it to be active. And if you think about it, if we manage to get the so-called undesired liquidations near 2 or to 0, then an effect of that could actually be that the whole thing is more profitable, because if that means that because of happy users, there is much more usage of the system, that's actually the factor we want to bring up, because that multiplies with everything where there's a way to get some revenue out of it. For example, if we build a civilian service where a Sentinel operator has some revenue, that may actually exceed the revenue it could get out of the military actions, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I think we should maybe put the focus on the civilian services.
Yeah, that's what I
stick with the point what Fran is saying, that basically it works as is. Sure, it could always be improved. Maybe it would even be better to have narco mode only, I don't know. But maybe we should just leave it as is, that part, and focus on the civilian service.
Yeah, I think that's the entire conversation about TOGA++, aside from the thing we're building outside of TOGA++ context, which is our own combination of externally developed service and internally developed service to make the civilian service happen, decentralized or centralized, right? Here, TOGA++ is about a decentralized version of it. That's what I'm trying to focus on. So our objective, as we started from very beginning, is to increase the protocol friendliness, to reduce undesired liquidation. So that is the objective. So changing the military service, how it works, the combat part can be interesting, and narco mode can be explored, but I think the bigger return on investment at the moment is really to reduce the undesired liquidations one way or the other, right? And actually talking even more broadly, how do we even eliminate that from the source? That would be even better, right? So AlamaPay did it in a way that they specialize in the payment between payer and paid, so that there's no liquidation problem, because all you need is to complain that you can't withdraw and someone were to top up money and done, right? So that's brilliant, actually, right? But that's just for one scenario. We're building a general solution. Unfortunately, we can't fall back to that easily. And other things would be that entirely new layer one approach, right? The layer one becomes sort of a DAG that the least insolvent chain is the one that's the longest chain, right? So this kind of thing. But what I'm just saying that if we can eliminate from source as much as possible, of course, it would be ideal. But we have what we have. So what we do is to make sure that those civilian services are performed by the either decentralized way or centralized way. We just need to make it a goal that the protocol friendliness in terms of undesired liquidation should be going towards zero. And that's actually a measurable thing. I mean, that should be our even OKR at some point, right? It's no, adoption is one side, but this side is the protocol friendliness could be a good measurement, right? How do we measure protocol friendliness? One is measured by number of people coming to Discord complaint. The other would be how to objectively measure it. Since Leo is here, do you have any thoughts that how do we tag what is undesired liquidation, what is desired liquidation? Can we even infer that information at all?
I mean, I don't know if that is an answer, a thing that you want to answer from the top down, right? I think that should be driven by business decisions, whether or not we want, I think it was already mentioned in this discussion, whether or not we want liquidations to happen in the first place.
Yeah, just pinging you for some thoughts. It's not a well-phrased question, right? So too early to ask that question. Sorry.
Yeah, let me just do 2 comments on the anarchy mode. Again, we are an open. Can you? No, sorry.
Yeah.
We are an open system streams. Period. That's the difference. That's why Superfluid works so well, and why we can have millions of streams running with the same state sync. It's not in discussion. If it is open, we have to deal with open streams. Assuming that just because someone is going to make $1 and you can prove that in 10 years they are going to close your stream, yeah, we can close the stake and the peak and go to anarchy. That's not the security. You are assuming something that you cannot prove. We need the budget if something goes wrong. and try to mitigate that. It's just everyone can run it. If anyone can run it, nobody's going to put money on it. Let's be careful about the
anarcho-capitalist, I can tell you the market can solve it. That's a joke.
No, the market is going to solve it eventually. You destroy a token, it's solved. We don't want the final solution. We don't want the end game. We want a pre-end game. It can be catastrophic. It depends on the amounts, but can really destroy the stable coin. As you say about the anarchy mode, why we have that security budget, why we are talking about it. And I'm talking, this topic of TOGA++ and Sentinels are not user experience stuff. This is a tech discussion. User experience stuff is someone is providing the service, period. People don't care what's going to happen in the kitchen. This is a tech discussion. So because if we go to the user experience and what the expectations they have, this is another discussion. I cannot code that. I cannot put a smart contract expectations of users. Did you also focus on the military and the civilian? I like that we have both of these terms, but the military, even in the real world, someone needs to pay to be running. We don't want to use, but someone needs to pay. They need to be ready. And it's going to happen the same way. That's the core discussion. The Sentinels need to exist. The TOGA, the bond, needs to exist to ensure that something goes wrong, we have time to fix it before the end game. But they need to exist. We are not going to run it because we make an assumption in the beginning that this should be decentralized. Core components like liquidity is from the community to maintain. So that's why we build a Sentinel. We could build one script and running forever, but we are taking the risk. We are putting the money there. This is way manageable if a lot of small participants opt in to do the security or just to be just one entity. But I like the military service, to be called when needed, but they need to be ready, they need to be there. And assuming that just because, oh, you integrated with some bot, that someone is going to run it, that's, people run it and are not profitable because they can get slashed.
Okay.
Right. But just kind of building on these 2 points. So on the money bit, it makes sense, right? Like if something goes wrong, we need to have the liquidity there to make sure that can be handled, right? And so like one naive solution is that we could just throw all our own money into the pot and then we run our own Sentinel, sure. Or what we're doing instead is crowdsourcing this. But the problem is like we expect somebody to put up a stake and they expect to make diminishing returns over a long period of time with the risk that they can get slashed if they miss even a single one, or if Polygon goes down, because that happened to me, right? So like we're asking people to put themselves in these situations that it like just theoretically like they would never want to do it. Like I would never want to do it. This is why I don't run a Sentinel anymore. So like that's one second. So there's that, and then the other issue is that like I know this is a tech discussion and it's not perfectly related to user experience, but this stuff propagates in the same way that like we have these like arbitrary byte strings we pass to the host. Like that works for us on the core, but that becomes a developer experience issue down the line. In the same way that like by expecting, like we're telling people like you have to put up this stake, you're at risk of being slashed, and the only way that you make money is if other people mess up. That propagates to a user experience issue where they're messing up, and there's an incentive to keep driving that, right? Like we've talked about that before.
Well, we're talking about building the civilian service here, right? So the profit should be going up. We're not trying, I'm not sure why that's necessary.
We are adding more service.
So guys, one way to maybe think about this is that the liquidation system is zero sum, right? And as long as the liquidation system stays zero sum, we're never going to agree, but it has to be zero sum because the protocol breaks otherwise. It's just that simple. It breaks. So in order to avoid the protocol breaking, but also avoiding the users being unhappy, we need to figure out a separate revenue stream for the pick, right? That's as simple as it is, but it has to be for the pick, because if it's not for the pick and it's more in general for someone, it doesn't work because it eliminates the requirement to put up a stake. And if you eliminate the requirement to put up a stake, we're back to benevolence benevolent, right?
Yeah, and hence why we try to build a social coordination mechanism that the PIC is share some of its profit to the stakers. We'll create a staking type of sharing system also, and that's where the discussion was about when Nuno started this, right? So yeah, Joshua. So just to clarify, we will acknowledge that we will make liquidation as less frequent as possible. But all we are trying to focus here is to build additional revenues. And Fran also asked you a question, right? For example, bridge. If you can bridge our if Superfluid set up bridge, that should be an independent another social coordination for the fee, or should it just connect to the generally the PIC the TOGA plus, right? So that's where we should focus a bit more. So forget about the security military service part. It's not only zero sum, it's probably negative sum. Why? Because it's an insurance, it's a security budget. We actually need to put more money to make sure that there's no bad things happen. So it's actually not even zero sum, it's actually a security budget. But all the other things we should build to compensate that, to make the network focus on more value add as opposed to just make the security political secure. I think.
And just to give another idea to challenge my own idea that I wrote it. Basically, if we want to have more budget, why not take a small amount on each stream that goes to this fund? And the peak requirements start to drop, and eventually we can drop and we enter to different modes without 3Ps. That should be the proposal. Basically, we know that having the money there is really important. How can we feed it to change the system layer? So a small percentage of each stream go to the fund, like a fee.
Well, yeah, I think in general that idea makes sense. The only thing is, I think the risk is proportional to the flow rate multiplied by time. And I think you basically would need a streaming fee in order to correctly map.
Yeah, but this idea is we are trying to brainstorm it now.
Yes, I don't think streaming fee is a good idea because it's a bit more rent seeking, while the value add service like civilian service is a bit more genuine value add than just the rent seeking way of streaming fee. Well, streaming fee could be tied to the negative components of the security budget, right? That can be justified, right? If there is an insurance aspect. Other than that, I don't see a justified way. But the insurance is always hard to price. I mean, other one can always fork you and ignore the security, right? So they say, okay, it's secure, security budget is zero and done, and your fee is gonna be ignored, right? It's very hard to actually convince people to pay the fee that they can't perceive the benefits because it's security insurance.
Agree.
We can use the gas tank fees from the civilian service to fund the military, like countries do. Is the PIB, is the world GDP, the country GDP that pay for the military, something like that. We have more ideas we can explore.
I mentioned in the chat, I think the fees that are generated by the streaming bridge, for example, could go to juice up because there is a value add there, right? It's not just a pure rent seeking fee. So
yeah, exactly. So we should think in economic terms. Is it a genuine kind of a genuine value add? Then we should just charge it without even hesitation, right? Because the assumption is that if anyone do it, unless they subsidize with their pocket, they can't compete, right? If they subsidize, well, too bad. We can't do that. For how long? Let's see, right? So I think that's good. I think we missed the last part, but I think last part I'd rather we take some homework, the off-chain system distribution, because do need some study about other networks, especially MEV, to see if we have a case even to plug it in, right? I'm just throwing a very raw idea. So if we, for next conversation, if we can do a little bit more research on that, then we can come back again. And please do share with whoever you think is relevant for this discussion. Now it's public, all the discussion thread, no summary yet. And invite whoever you think might be interested in this topic in 2 weeks. And then we'll continue this plus the discussion regarding off-chain system distributions. We have a few minutes. Maybe anyone have some quick comments regarding if they even understand what does it mean, like off-chain system distribution and how to plug. Maybe some comments I can take. I can gather and comment here. How are we doing? We actually have 3 versions, right? No, how many versions we have? I can dig into the archive, but
from the Sentinel 3,
yeah.
we have the initial Go version.
We actually have 2. We have 2 that's operating. One is in the Slack. No, actually in cron job, checking all the right. So that's not fully automated, but manual. Sorry, cron job type.
That's the MEV. It's a type of that plugin that we should extend.
Yeah. The only thing is that we are not event driven, right? So we have a little bit more work than usually because some of the life cycle of the stream are not event based, but per block, right? So I'm curious if we can actually plug it in with ease, or maybe some hacks. Maybe other different type of agent, right? Maybe a specialized agent for just one type of civilian service, like Gelato for closing a stream. And that, should we allow that to plug into the PIC system altogether? Because so far we kind of assume that if you participate in PIC, you should do the full service, not the partial service. We don't have that encoded in our system language in a way, right? So we say, if you're participating, you're kind of doing the full service. No, so I don't know how to model that, how to think about that. So if it's just a stream closing, yeah, fine.
Crazy idea. I just wanted to mention that it's a bit of a significant. It would be a significant protocol change, but I thought it might be fun. It's one of the ideas we discussed way back in the day, Meow. So basically, there was this concept of delegated buffer, where the buffer is not put up by the user, but can be put up by anyone. So this basically would mean that in order to open a stream, you have to provide a buffer, but it doesn't have to necessarily be you. It could be someone else, right? So for example, the Superfluid dashboard could provide buffers for the Superfluid dashboard users. Diagonal could provide a buffer for the Diagonal users, and you can't open a stream without a buffer. So everybody has to provide a buffer, and the buffer would then become a sort of decentralized TOGA stake in a sense. Like there would be multiple of them, right, with different user bases. However, then you would have to in some way estimate what the minimum size of that is. But that could be, it's an interesting solution because it also enables something that currently isn't possible, which is bufferless streams, which do have a place, right? So for example, if you want to do this use case that everybody loves, which is like, as I watch a video, I pay for every second of it. That is not currently feasible because the buffer just makes it stupid. But if somebody else was the capital for the buffer, then that kind of use case becomes actually feasible because somebody else can guarantee for you and you can basically open the stream without a buffer, right? So it's an interesting concept. I think we shelved it because it felt just too complicated. Yeah, but in a VC, it might be worth exploring.
Yeah. Okay. Delegated buffer. It might not be that complicated. We can think that more. Yeah. Well, the API is complicated, right? Our API is already getting complicated with ACL added, right? Adding another where the buffer comes from. That's the API is getting really complicated. The implementation might not be as much. All right, and comment is that also good discussion. Thanks everyone.
Everyone, bye.
Yeah, cheers, bye.
Bye guys.
Bye.